Tools, education, and community to help engineers succeed. That's the new platform we're developing called The Wave. One of the key features of The Wave is called design accelerators. These are prepackaged CAD building blocks, similar to the low-code, no-code trend in the software industry, but for CAD, that help you finish new designs in hours instead of days. Download a sampling of our design accelerators for free at teampipeline.us/wave and let us know what you think. That's teampipeline.us/wave. They're free, but only for a limited time. So take advantage of this offer and download them today.
Hi, everyone. We've set up this Being an Engineer podcast as an industry knowledge repository, if you will. We hope it'll be a tool where engineers can learn about and connect with other companies, technologies, people, resources, and opportunities. So make some connections and enjoy the show.
Like, everyone claims to be a super hard worker, right? But then if you send an email at 7 p.m., like, no one responds. Like, being that guy who responds at 7 p.m., or I think that makes a big difference and helps you stand out from all the people who say that they're hard workers.
Welcome to the Being an Engineer podcast. Today we are speaking with Glenn Hickman. Glenn is a technology executive with Arizona farmer roots, focused on producing results in integrated hardware-software ecosystems. He holds a bachelor's degree in biomedical engineering, a master's degree in mechanical engineering, and an MBA. Glenn, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So what made you decide to become an engineer?
Yeah, I grew up on a chicken farm. I actually kind of liked it. It's kind of nice to take care of the animals. But in high school, I loved physics and biology. I didn't like math that much, but it seemed like biomedical engineering was a pretty good combination of the physics and biology. So that's what I majored in at Stanford. Stanford actually at the time didn't really have a super rigorous program for it. They had you take all the mechanical engineering core classes, and then they had you take a lot of the biology classes that the pre-meds had to take. So actually, I could have gone into med school afterwards if I had wanted to.
What was it like growing up on a farm, especially if at all, as it relates to being an engineer? Were there any lessons or mindsets that you developed growing up on a farm that have been useful to you as an engineer?
Oh, let me think. I mean, obviously they're super different. Maybe one would be, you shouldn't, as an engineer, you shouldn't think that your job is just to do the design and then sit back and wait for other people to do the testing, and the manufacturing. Similar to that, like on a chicken ranch, you have to be prepared to step up at wherever you can. If someone's sick or if a big order comes in, you might have to work at night or on the weekend. So maybe I guess that kind of the need to wear multiple hats is maybe something that would carry over.
Yeah, just strong work ethic in general.
Yep.
Did you ever have to make any of your own tools growing up on a farm?
Yeah, you have to make, different, there's some pipes that need to be loosened. So you have to make these weird, it's like a wrench, but with a rubber cable, so you can grab onto a pipe and loosen it. So small things here and there.
Yeah. Nothing that you would hire an engineering firm to do. You just figure it out on your own on the farm.
Yeah, well, actually, most egg ranches nowadays have a lot of robots to gather
Oh, is that
the
right?
eggs,
Really?
and to bring food to the chickens and to, stack the boxes on a pallet. But those robots are kind of off the shelf. You just buy them from Europe. And they kind of work all day, and you maybe have to put some oil on there, but you don't really need any kind of engineering to keep the robots going.
So do the robots have some kind of vision system on them so they can identify what's an egg and what's not an egg?
Yep. Yeah. Depending on the robot, for example, there's 8 different sizes of eggs. So the robot grabs onto each one, in the plant and weighs it. And then depending upon the weight, kind of, puts it in the right spot depending on the carton, if it's small or extra large or jumbo.
That's amazing. Now, the robots I'm used to working with, like Fanuc or Universal Robot, these are not inexpensive pieces of equipment. Are the robots used in egg farms much less expensive, or is the return on investment just there, even with expensive industrial robots?
They're pretty pricey. Yeah, I mean, like a simple one to stack boxes is maybe like $100,000, and then the big fancy one to weigh every single egg is like $1 million. But
Wow.
the margins are pretty thin in the egg business, so you kind of have to do whatever it takes to keep your costs down.
Got it. Okay. Very cool. I had no idea that robots were being used to harvest eggs.
Yeah, if you actually, if you go to Mike's Dirty Jobs, Mike Rowe, he went to our ranch in like 2005 time frame, and it's on YouTube and stuff.
That's awesome. Huh. Let's see. You worked for a company called Taser for about 7 years. I think most people are at least familiar with the term Taser and may or may not associate it with the product that Taser now Axon makes. So here in Arizona, we all know Taser because they're in our backyard. But for those who aren't familiar with the company, can you just share a little bit about what Taser now Axon does?
Yeah, so the taser is like what you've seen in the movies, or in some movies, where it shoots a dart 15 to 25 feet, and then it causes you to be paralyzed. It causes some pain, although that's not really how it works. It works by causing all of your muscles to flex, and then you can't move, so the officer can arrest you safely. So yeah, that's where I worked the first 8 or so years. It's not really like how it is in the movies, where in the movies, people like shake a lot and they're in like horrible pain. And even after the 5 seconds or whatever the duration is up, they're still in pain. That's not how the taser works. It just causes you to flex all your muscles and you can't really move. And then as soon as the officer lets go of the trigger, you feel perfectly fine and you can walk around.
Did you ever get tased yourself as like part of an initiation?
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much all the men volunteer because we're stupid, and the women don't volunteer. But yeah, we did pretty much all the male employees do the 5 seconds, and because like everyone thinks that you can fight it off, but you're totally paralyzed because all your muscles are flexed, and the more muscle you have,
physiology,
kind
right?
of the worse it is. Yeah. So,
do you fall to the ground, or are you able to remain standing during that 5 seconds?
Well, in the real world, yeah, you would fall unless there's someone there to catch you. But in the office, when you volunteer, you're either they're laying down or someone's there to like slowly lower you to the ground.
Yeah. Okay. What was worse, the anticipation of getting tased or the actual tasing?
Oh, the anticipation, yeah, is so much worse. Yeah, because some people do scream just because if you take a big breath and then the shock of it causes you to scream. So sometimes you hear the screaming down at the bottom of the office, and that causes you to get nervous. Yeah.
What kind of torture is going on up there? Wow. Okay. If someone else touches you while you're being tased, do they get shocked?
No.
You have to have both electrodes in you.
Yeah, and then it just takes the shortest path between the two electrodes. So the way the officer is taught is to try to get one in your belly and one in your upper thigh. And then it'll just go between those 2 points and kind of lock up all your chest and your leg muscles so the officer can grab you.
Got it. Okay. And you just fire it once, right? You don't have to fire it once in the belly and then fire it a second time in the thigh.
Right. Yeah. 2 darts come out with every fire. So there are more shots if you miss, or if you're wearing a really thick jacket, like in the winter, it might struggle to spark through the jacket. So you might have to do a second shot to get at least 2 through the jacket. Got it.
Okay. Well, one of the things that you accomplished at Taser was developing a creative design review process. Can you talk just a little bit about what even is a design review? Why is it important? And what can you share about the process that you developed that engineering teams listening to this might be able to use?
Yeah, I think the process that we developed was had different stages. So at the very beginning, the design review process is about some senior engineer looked at the requirements, like if the battery life is supposed to be 5 years or something, and then he proposes his overall idea to achieve that requirement. So, for example, it might be, I'm pretty sure I'm going to use this kind of a battery, or if he doesn't want to use a battery, he wants to use a super cap. And then this meeting should be pretty inclusive of not just all the engineers, but anyone who has an interest in technology, because this is kind of the time to brainstorm everything. Is there any other way to achieve the battery life? Are we sure this is the smallest and the cheapest possible way to achieve the battery life? So that's kind of stage one, is everyone gives their idea to the senior engineer, and he has to input all the ideas and be pretty humble that his idea might not be the best. And then toward the later stages of the program, as it progresses, the group of people invited to the meeting should go down, because then it's getting very on the technical side to go into all the details, which like only engineers would be able to contribute. So suppose if he chose a super cap as his idea, then a couple months later, when it's time to spend a lot of money on the prototypes, before you do that, you would have all the senior engineers and as many engineers as you can to look at the execution of the super cap and say, is it the right size? Is it the right material? Did you put it in the right spot? All that kind of stuff, because the key is you're trying, like when you test a prototype, of course, you're going to have some bugs and you're going to have to iterate. But the idea is your first real attempt, spending real money on the prototype, should be as good as you possibly can. You don't want to be in that cycle of testing over and over, because the first time you test, you have like 15 bugs, and then you fix some, and then second time you test, you have 7, and the third time you test, you still have 3. So you're trying to bring the cycles down and solve as many problems as you can on paper, because that's the fast way and the cheap way. It's always expensive to buy 1,000 prototypes or whatever and have the manufacturing team try to make it at night or on weekends, and then have the validation team do the testing. So you're trying to reduce the cycle time of all the testing.
Yeah, great. So it starts off as kind of a big all hands on deck type meeting where everyone gives their input and ideas. Senior level engineer kind of filters out what he or she thinks is the most practical, logical approach. And then from there, the meetings, the design reviews are smaller, mainly involving the engineering team. Is that about it?
Yep. And I think one small funny story, I don't know if it's totally true, but there's a myth at Apple that the scroll wheel on the first iPod was actually the idea of the CFO. So like the moral of the story was invite everyone to those early meetings, because you never know who might have a good idea.
Interesting. Okay, great. Well, while at Taser, also you grew their hardware team, hardware and firmware team from 35 to 75 individuals. What were some of the strategies that you used to grow the team, and what were a couple of the biggest obstacles that you encountered, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I think the key thing was we wanted to be rigorous with our interviews, but we're a small team, so we didn't want our engineers to spend all day interviewing, like they have real work to do. So we came up with questions that I think there's some interviews have like some puzzle questions that are fun, but maybe not very realistic, or college type questions that aren't reflective of your job. So we came up with questions that you would face on the job, to try to get at people's real skill as easily or as quickly as we could. So like for the electrical engineers, we'd give them a board that was intentionally poorly done and ask them to find all the bugs and find all the things that could be better. For the mechanical engineers, it was, what's your test plan to make sure that this device is going to be strong enough for the drop test, and give them very real world problems and get an idea of what it would be like to work with them. And then if they're doing well, because we do 5 interviews or something, if they aced the first 3, then at that point, they're awesome. So you need to stop grilling them and start to make sure that they're having a good time and kind of sell them on why they should join. Because no one wants to sit through 5 hours of being grilled. So after the first 3, if you aced it, then we'd start to chill out and just try to get to know you and try to convince you to join.
Nice. What were some things that you shared to convince people that this is where they should want to be?
Yeah, I think similar to rap, the nice thing about Axon and rap is we're not just making widgets. We're trying to do things that save lives and help the officer do his job and make it so that people can be apprehended safely and without harm. And, especially for these people who are mentally ill, like they don't have like an evil bone in their body. They're just like lost. And so it's really sad when an officer has to use a gun or use the nightstick on some of these mentally ill people. Like there's got to be a better way.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more fulfilling. Like some of us here at RAP, we could have gone to work for Apple or for Google, probably made more money, but it's just more fulfilling to be helping people.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for the fulfillment you find in your job. Well, after working for, I think, about a decade, maybe a little over a decade, you decided to go back to school and earn an MBA. What motivated you to make that choice? And if you had it to do over again, would you make the same choice?
Yeah, I'd always kind of thought about it, and Axon was going through a lot of transitions anyway, so it seemed like a good time. I'd always thought about it because I feel like there's engineering stereotypes out there that somehow you're super good at math and physics, but you're not good at the math of how to calculate the profit margin or something, or you're not sure like how to write a business plan, even though, like, let's be honest, like engineering school is like the hardest school. If you can get through engineering school, you can get through like any other
For
school.
sure. Yeah.
But I feel like there's some stereotypes out there that, oh, you don't know how to do marketing and you don't know how to make a profit. So I wanted to, go to a great business school so that people couldn't say that about me. And I don't regret it like at all. Kellogg especially, they like made it their mission to go after all the stereotypes of business school and try to address them. So, some people say that you don't actually learn that much in business school, or some people say it's super boring. So they really tried to teach you a lot, but have fun while doing it. And like, not to knock Stanford, but the professors at Kellogg were way more engaging and, like loose and free and telling some jokes. So yeah, it was pretty great. Even though with, the second half of my business school, was all remote because of COVID. But it still worked out pretty good because I was getting kind of sick of Chicago anyways. It was super cold. So I got to come back to Phoenix anyway.
Yeah. Back to the egg farm. What were, I don't know, maybe a couple of what you feel most important lessons that you learned at business school that engineers in general might benefit from?
Well, I think in general, if you're an engineer thinking about going, the finance math is going to be super easy for you compared to the math and engineering school. So that's like all the other non-engineers in my classes were struggling with the finance math, but the engineers thought it was just a breeze. I think another thing is, I feel like if you're outside of the industry, that marketing, you might think that marketing is about pretty artwork and clever advertisements and stuff and like silly stuff like that, when actually the right marketing people think of it as strategy. Like, what do my customers need? What problems in their life am I solving? What are some possible substitutes that I think I'm better than? So actually, like, marketing should be pretty fun and strategic. It shouldn't be drawing pretty pictures and stuff.
Great. Yeah. Well, I'll take a very short break here and share with the listeners that teampipeline.us is where you can learn more about how we develop or how we help medical device and other product engineering or manufacturing teams develop turnkey equipment, custom fixtures, and automated machines to characterize, inspect, assemble, manufacture, and perform verification testing on your devices. We're speaking with Glenn Hickman today. So, Glenn, you're a COO of a company called RAP. What can you tell us about RAP? How did it get started? What's the problem that they're trying to solve, etc.?
Yeah, so RAP allows the officer to shoot a tether around the suspect from 15 to 25 feet away, so that the subject is kind of stopped in their tracks and the officer can engage them without causing any injury or pain. And so that was kind of the goal. Was there's a large subset of situations where, the officer should always try to talk it out first, but then sometimes things are just impossible to solve just by talking. And he's forced to use other tools. Obviously, the gun is very dangerous. the taser can cause some injuries like a broken arm or leg, or even like an injury to the head.
If you fall.
So there's, right, if you fall. So the wrap doesn't paralyze you. So in a way, it doesn't work as good, but it's for all the situations where you don't want to use more severe levels of force. So you're just a little bit tangled up. If you fall, you can still use your arms to slow yourself down. But mostly people don't fall, and they're just kind of stunned for a second about what just happened, because it's loud and some kind of a rope is on your legs all of a sudden. And that split second of being confused is enough for the officer to rush in and arrest you, or just like lead you away. So it's kind of unlike the taser. The BOLA is intended for less severe situations, and you can use it, once a week or something early in the situation. As soon as things are starting to get out of control, you can kind of use this to get things back under control. So a lot of us here are from taser because we like the taser, but the taser, because it does cause some injury, officers just can't use it that much. It's more of like a once a year thing, whereas the BOLA is more of a once a week thing. So it's pretty cool to see.
Oh, wow.
For your product to be used that often. So
yeah, I watched some videos online, and it's pretty incredible just from a technical or mechanical standpoint in how it works. You see in the movies people throwing this. Is that what it's called? Is a BOLA that wraps around your legs and causes people to, they can't move anymore? I didn't know what a BOLA was. Anyway,
yeah.
Okay, so the way that this thing, fires from the handheld device and then wraps around someone's waist or legs or arms really quickly, I imagine at Taser just figuring out how to get these projectiles to shoot out and pierce someone's skin in just the right way. There's, significant challenge there technically. But the BOLA wrap, I don't know, I could be wrong. To me, it seems like there's even more challenge in the mechanics of figuring out how to get this rope to wrap around someone in a repeatable manner. What were some of the challenges that your team had to solve, some of the technical challenges in developing the BOLA wrap?
Yeah, obviously, we want it to be safe, so we can't just, shoot it like a gun, because then it's going really fast and it's dangerous. So we used... it's an explosive that's similar to an airbag, so it gives it enough speed, but not too much. And we had to just do a lot of experimenting and track the results super carefully to see what was the effectiveness at different ranges. We knew that we wouldn't work well at 50 feet, but that's okay. Officers always try to talk it out first, like I said, so they're already pretty close to you. And then trying to get the flight right. The length of the tether is 7.5 feet. That's because it needs to be long enough to go around you several times. But if we make it too long, then it becomes heavier. And also, if it's longer, it kind of flies straight horizontal. So it's wide. So if you're standing 5 feet from a chair, if you make the tether super long, it'll hit the chair and not work. So we had to try to find the balance of being long enough, but not super long. And compared to the taser, we have, there's a lot more challenges on the mechanical side and less on the electrical side, obviously, since the taser's trying to make 50,000 volts. So that was the main challenge of the taser.
Wow, 50,000 volts. That is a lot of voltage. For the BOLA wrap, I was really intrigued, and if this is, a confidential trade secret or something, feel free to just move on. We can talk about something else, but I was really intrigued by mechanically, how does this thing, I assume this thing is stretched out to, you said 7.5 feet, I guess. Does the middle of the tether, is that what strikes the body first, and then it wraps around kind of equally on both ends?
Yep, that's correct. And so the anchor is what we call it, is just like a metal piece on each end with similar to fish hooks on the end of it. So the anchor has some weight to help it go around you 3 or 4 times, depending upon how skinny you are. And then it's got a fish hook to latch onto your jeans or your pants or your shirt.
Got it.
And the pain is usually either 0 pain, or it'll touch your skin. It'll go through your pants and touch your skin, and you feel like a thumbtack on your skin, but then it comes out and sticks to your pants.
Okay. And what if you're wearing shorts? Does it just hook into your skin?
Sometimes it'll hook into your skin, like just barely on the surface. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I was wondering mechanically how it anchors to itself, because it looks like it's a very repeatable process. Um, what technical roles or skill sets did you need to build on your team to develop the bowler wrap?
Well, I think there was already some really great people here. We mostly needed to add people to do the testing in a rigorous way and log all the data. So we have some high-speed cameras here that we also had to purchase so that you can watch everything in super slow-mo. They cost like 50 or 60 grand each, but they take like 1,000 frames a second. So you can watch the anchor leave the muzzle like 1 inch at a time. And then you can also watch it wrap around the subject and see how it wraps, and does it strike any other object? Does it bounce off the pants or stick to the pants? And people to log all the data and the setup, like was the subject 15 feet away? What was the muzzle velocity? Where did you aim? Where did it actually land on the subject? Where did it hit or bounce off? All that stuff.
Yeah. How about some of the non-technical challenges? Were there any significant non-technical problems that you needed to overcome to bring this product to market?
Yeah, law enforcement's a tricky market where it's kind of infamous that they have a lot of former military, right, in law enforcement. So they're used to super high levels of quality on the military side, but they don't want to pay those military those prices anymore. See, it's a tough industry where they want really high levels of quality, but almost like a consumer level of cost. So it's with all of our engineering and supply chain, it's a really tough line to walk to buy parts that are super high quality but not super expensive. And so like the cheap way to do everything is with injection molded.
Yeah.
But then you have to make sure that it's strong enough. Like ideally we do everything out of like aluminum, like an iPhone or something, but that's just too expensive. So we have to be really careful to make the plastic strong enough.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I think, in general, for like on the non-technical side, officers are just, they really want their stuff to work every time, every day. No quality issues. It's okay if you drop it. It can be dunked in a pool and survive. So because of that, they're really slow to purchase, and they have to do like a T&E where they get to test the product for free and put it through its paces. And then even then they're kind of slow to adopt because they don't want like innovation just for innovation's sake. They want to make sure that it's really going to be dependable.
Yeah. Making their jobs easier. Can you walk us through the development process of bowler wrap? Where did your team start, and like what were the major phases or milestones, and how did you know when you were done? How did you know when good enough was good enough?
Yeah, so every process should start really not very technical with a discussion about what the customer needs, what other requirements, very specific. What price will they accept? Because, if the device costs $1,000 to make, but the officer won't take more than like $1,100 price, then there's no way to make any money. So doing like the business case, that's where everything should start. And then from there, you start on the research phase, very like rough prototypes and proof of concepts, just to make sure that this is like within the laws of physics, right? Once you pass those, then you start to make higher fidelity samples and rigorous on the testing side. So that's kind of that testing is where you start to spend the money, and it takes, a year or so. Make sure to log all the data, fix all the bugs. And then you start to make a pilot line, make sure that the manufacturing team they should be involved the whole time to advise you on, don't use that kind of glue. That's a really hard glue to use. Use this one. It's easier. Get the pilot line up, make sure that the yield is going to start off acceptable on the first day. Obviously it's going to get better over time, but get the operators trained, and then have the launch, and then monitor the metrics super carefully to make sure that customers are happy and there's no bugs. And then from there, you just transition into like sustaining engineering. Are there any small features that we can add to make it sell better? and then just keep doing that for however many years until the end of life.
What are your thoughts on building your own in-house manufacturing versus working or outsourcing your supply chain to contract manufacturers?
Yeah, I think in general, the approach I've seen work for law enforcement, because like I said, it's such a strange market, is outsource the easy stuff and then do final assembly and final quality yourself. So we try to get things done like in modules with the CMs. That's kind of the easy part. And then we assemble the Legos here, make sure that quality is very good before we put it in the box and ship it to customers.
Got it. Okay. Well, what's your role like as Chief Operating Officer, COO? What are some of the common day-to-day activities that you perform, and how has a background in engineering prepared you for those responsibilities?
Yeah, I think every engineer, the good thing about our education is we are rigorous and we try to break down big, scary problems into like smaller chunks. That's still like useful for many jobs. And then I think if you're a senior engineer, you know that you need to be involved with multiple teams and not just do the design. So, a senior engineer has to talk to manufacturing about how do we make this? How do we get the yields up? Talk to supply chain about how do we find a good supplier that's not super expensive? Talk to the quality team. And so like as COO, your job really isn't that much different from being a good senior engineer. It's just kind of more often and at a higher level. So, I'm responsible for manufacturing and supply chain and quality and IT. So now it's just it's a little different, but actually not super different if you're a good senior engineer trying to make sure that everything about your product is good.
Yeah. What are the best and worst parts of your job?
The best part I would say is definitely not bored, because I'm involved with everything. So, I'm involved in this project from 9 to 10, and then from 10 to 11 this totally different thing, and then 1 to 2 supply chain doing a big negotiation. So it's impossible to get bored because I get to switch between all these different things. The worst thing I would say right now, just the economy is not friendly to startups. They really don't there was a time, the whole last 10 years really, they didn't really care about profit as long as your revenue was growing, and all that. Whereas now they want to see profit now, super low spend. If you think about it, Amazon didn't make a profit for a long time and no one really cared. And, Salesforce.com didn't make a profit for their first 12 years or something, and no one really cared. Those days are over. You have to try to get your spend way down and get your profit as high as you can.
What do you think has changed? Why is the mindset different now?
Well, it's just the economy, right? Inflation's going up, supply chain is tough.
The belt's just being tightened just across the board. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see even the best companies in the world, like Tesla and Netflix, have had huge crashes, right?
Yeah.
Kind of for no reason. It's just kind of the state of things.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Well, what are 1 or 2 traits or skills that you've seen the most talented engineers have in common?
I think I kind of already mentioned one where they don't just do the design. They talk to all the departments and feel like they own the product and not trying to throw things over the wall at the other teams. I think just being a super hard worker, everyone claims to be a super hard worker, right? But then if you send an email at 7 p.m., no one responds. Being that guy who responds at 7 p.m. or comes in on the weekend to do just a couple hours of testing, I think that makes a big difference and helps you stand out from all the people who say that they're hard workers.
Yeah, there's this I don't know if delicate balance is even the right term for it, but there's kind of this movement these days against putting in a lot of hours, right? There's a lot of talk about homework balance and not letting your career consume you. and everything's a balance, right? There's no like right or wrong answer for everyone. But I will say that the engineers that put in more time than others progress more quickly. People ask me often, how do I accelerate my growth as an engineer? Well, I think one of the really good answers is you put more time in. You spend that time, because over the course of many years, if you're spending an extra, 3-4 hours a week, against, other engineers who are just putting in their 40 and that's it, they're done, you're going to have hundreds or thousands of additional hours of experience being an engineer, and that's going to pay dividends in the future. So, personally, I like to work. I work a lot. I work on the weekends all the time. I often work in the evenings a little bit, and that's just me. That's how I operate. I guess I take a little bit of a stance against this whole movement of just put in your 40 hours and be done, and don't work too much. I think while there has to be a balance, sure, I think working is great, and it fuels the soul for me anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other one I was going to mention was, some engineers aren't going to like this, but like emotional intelligence and being easy to work with. If it comes time to have a layoff happen, they're not going to lay off all the super nice, fun people. They're going to lay off the grumpy people, right?
Yeah.
So just being like easy to work with, and, if someone doesn't respond to your email, don't be like, how come you didn't respond? It took you forever to respond, like give people a chance, and just be like, easy to work with. So.
Yeah. Don't be a jerk. Well, I mentioned one of the answers to this next question is just putting in more time, but what do you think are one or two of the most effective ways that engineers can accelerate their growth and productivity over time?
I think trying to solve, like I said, as many problems as you can on paper, because the way that you can easily burn thousands of hours is being in the lab, testing, chasing down 50, 60 bugs, making tweaks forever to try to fix the bugs. Like, it's much faster to solve those things up front and like think about all the tools at your disposal. Like, is there some kind of FEA, some simulation that you can do? I mean, simulation still isn't the dream. Like, you can't just ask the software, is this idea going to work or not? But if you have like 10 ideas, you can use FEA and simulation to kill like the 3 bad ones at least. You don't have to bother with the testing of those. So just thinking through, like, you don't want to be a lab monkey testing millions of ideas and fixing millions of bugs. Like, there's got to be a way to use your brain as much as you can before you get to that stage.
Yeah, right. Okay, great. Well, Glenn, this has been a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you for sharing some of your time and experience and engineering wisdom. How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm pretty easy to find on LinkedIn at Glenn Hickman, so it's probably the quickest way. And thanks for having me.
Perfect.
It's pretty fun.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks for being here.
Great. Have a good one.
I'm Aaron Monker, founder of Pipeline Design and Engineering. If you liked what you heard today, please share the episode. To learn how your team can leverage our team's expertise developing turnkey equipment, custom fixtures, and automated machines, and with product design, visit us at teampipeline.us. Thanks for listening.